Ladies and gentlemen, I know this is the moment you've been waiting for. After about 2.5 years, the lawyers are back on the air. So I'm Rob Curtis, sitting here with Tom Connair. And it has been a while since we've been on. I think at one point we were actually running neck and neck with Boardwalk Empire in the Valley. The show was that popular.
It was.
And they decided to give us another chance. But since it's been a while since we've gotten a chance to visit with you, we thought we'd start out by telling you a little bit about ourselves, and I'll let Tom start, just giving you some background information and how it was that he got into the law and whatever else he's got to say. So, Tom?
Thank you, Robin. I started looking at the law really when I was in 8th grade. I graduated from college, went into the Navy for 4 years as an officer, and upon getting out of the Navy, I decided to go to law school. I was a bit naive and altruistic, thinking I could change the world, and that isn't quite the way it panned out, but I'm doing my little piece here. But after a stint at the New Hampshire Supreme Court as a clerk, I joined the firm of Leahy and Denault in Claremont, New Hampshire, and have been there 30 years ever since. And it's now called Leahy, Denault, Connair, and Hodgman. It's a general practice firm. We do soup to nuts, and we do a lot of personal injury work. And I've enjoyed it and will continue to enjoy it, hopefully for years to come. We partnered with Robin Curtis and his firm about 10 years ago. As I said, we do a lot of personal injury cases, but the partnership was such that Robin's firm, Van Dorn and Curtis, they're litigators. That's all they do. So there are those cases that we want the time and expertise that they can devote that is more difficult as a general practice firm. And you kind of get the best of both worlds, because we remain part of the case on the firms that do get litigated, but because that is now all they do, it's more efficient, and there's no extra charge for the clients that come in to see us. Our firm has been around since the 30s. I haven't been around quite that long, but I've also enjoyed my friendship and professional relationship with Robin Curtis. He, as an aside, is also an accomplished writer and publisher of short stories, and a nice guy. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, my life story, Robin, and I defer back to you at this point.
Well, thank you. And so I'm from Connecticut, and when I got out of college in the late 70s, it was in a real tough job crunch. I guess it's like it is for the kids now. There just weren't jobs. So I roofed houses for a couple of years and actually enjoyed it a lot. And then I taught English at a boarding school for a couple of years. So I was one of those guys who kind of, I think, drifted to law school, I have to say, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And it was really only after I started practicing that I discovered that I really did have a kind of a passion for representing people, and that's the important part, representing people against corporations, against insurance companies, against banks, against anything big. So what I like about our job is that we're always on the side of the people that lack the power in whatever confrontation they happen to be in. So being able to stand up for them is a really good feeling. And I've practiced with Ed Van Dorn, who is a just tremendous trial lawyer, has been a tremendous partner for better than 15 years now. And in that time, we've really had, the rewarding thing about the job is that we have had a lot of cases where we've been able to change people's lives based on what we were able to accomplish for them. So many things come to mind. We've represented lead-poisoned children. We've represented people that were the victims of all different kinds of medical malpractice. We've represented people that were injured in accidents because their car didn't function the way it was supposed to function or the way that they understood it would when they bought it. There are all kinds of categories of things, but the fact that we've been able to help the people involved in that stuff has really been the pride of my professional life.
It's been said many times that the judicial system as we know it is the great equalizer, because the little guy, the underdog, can take on General Motors. As my former partner used to say, who's now retired, you get up to bat and you get to swing away and you may hit the home run. So I also very much enjoy representing the underdog in a very adversarial situation, be it an insurance company, a large corporation, and sometimes my partner Jessica will say, against the state of New Hampshire, who may be in a position of trying to take children away from parents in an abuse and neglect kind of case. So we, I think as attorneys, seek to do justice. And that comes in many forms, many different types of cases, including personal injury cases where it is enjoyable for me as an attorney to be able to go up against an insurance company and be successful. And it's essential, an essential role of the attorney in that position is to be able to fight the good fight and, again, equalize the playing field, which I think we do and Robin does very aptly.
Well, thanks. And also the court system does. Because once you step into court, whether you're the people on the other side are General Motors or the state of New Hampshire, the state of Vermont, the U.S. government, once you step into court, in front of the jury, you've got an equal shot. Then there's one lawyer talking for you, one lawyer talking for them, and at that moment, the parties are equal. That's the intent of the system, and then that's the way that I've seen that it works. So,
I think it would be useful, Robin, since you do almost primarily personal injury law, and I do probably 30 to 40% of my practice, is to talk a little bit about what is a personal injury case, and what does it do, what can it do, and why do you need a lawyer? So maybe you could start.
Well, there are as many kinds of personal injury cases. It's a big umbrella. So it ranges anywhere from the person who gets rear-ended in an automobile accident and has a few medical bills to somebody who gets hurt because of medical malpractice, and their life is never going to be the same. There are all kinds of cases. The common thing, I think what they all have in common is you have to prove the same things, and that's pretty simple, that someone owed you a duty. Take the example of the guy who hits you from behind, that he owed you a duty to drive carefully, that he breached the duty, he didn't do that, that he hit you. And then the last part is to figure what your damages are, what you're owed for the breach. And in an awful lot of cases, that tends to be the sticking point, that the insurance company may say, well, it happened, and it was our insured's fault, but we don't think you're owed very much. That, more than anything, I think is why people in these kind of cases need lawyers, because my experience over and over is that they get treated completely unfairly and taken advantage of if they don't have lawyers. Now, within the one thing that I think that we have done differently than most, well, I mean, I think we may have been the first firm in northern New England, at least, to, when we try to settle cases, we videotape all our expert witnesses, we videotape our important fact witnesses. We put on a complete show to the insurance company so they can understand exactly the strength of our case. And we've found it time and time again to be very, very effective, because what they're getting is a glimpse of what a trial is going to be like. Mm-hmm. And a trial is scary for everybody. Yeah, it's scary for us, but I guess it's even scarier if you're the guy that's going to write the check at the end of the trial, and that's where the insurance company is, mm-hmm. the position they're in.
And I'd like to emphasize, too, it really is an adversarial situation. And it's not that insurance companies or insurance adjusters are bad people or, you know, trying to do bad things, but it is very much a profit-oriented industry. And the vast majority, although not all insurance companies, you know, have to report to their stockholders about how much money they're making. And the less you pay people, the more money you make. And so when you insert a lawyer into the situation who is experienced, they have some sense of what the value of the case might be. Because ultimately, if you can't settle the case, it goes to a jury of their peers, of all of you out there, who will sit and say, okay, this is what I consider to be a monetary value for what this individual has suffered. So if you're just dealing with you and the insurance company, unless you've been in an awful lot of accidents, you don't have a clue really as to the value of the case. So it's not a matter of morality, it's just a matter of getting an attorney to put forth your side of the case. And again, I think Robin's firm, and we do that very effectively, and we have. Unfortunately, as I tell most of my injured clients, we can't make you better. And I sincerely hope you get better, but all the judicial system will allow us is monetary damages, and that's difficult. It's difficult chore for juries to determine, and it's difficult for attorneys and insurance companies to determine. But you do have some sense after a while, I believe, Rob, as to what's kind of the ballpark. And that's where reasoned, prudent judgment of attorneys who are experienced comes into play. And that's really what a big piece of why you hire an attorney.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Tom, you make a really good point that people that represent plaintiffs, which Tom and I do, we're often accused of being greedy or money oriented. And I talk about that in front of the jury. You got to address the stereotype. When the truth is that it's not, the system that we've had for 200 years and better is that the only damages that you can get in a civil trial is money. It's not like in medieval times where you could get a champion to go up against the wrongdoer and straighten it out with him. So because the only thing that people can get in the kind of civil trials we do is money, is that it gives the other side, the insurance companies, an opportunity to stereotype us as being all about that. And the truth is that it's all we can do. You know, a lot of the people that I've represented have been so severely hurt. People that have become quadriplegic, people that also, in many instances, represented the families of people that have deceased. So the only thing that can be done then is to make them whole the way you do in our judicial system. And I always think that in front of juries, a large part of my job is making sure people understand that I didn't invent the system, my clients didn't invent the system, the other side didn't invent the system, but the only justice that injured people can get in a civil court is money, which means that most of them have two choices. They can walk away and say, you know what, it was somebody else's fault, but I'll suffer the consequences. Or they can stand up for themselves, and if you stand up for yourself, then you're maligned a little bit as being all about money. It's just kind of the way that it works.
And also, I think it's, there are really some national pushes and lobbyists for insurance companies to try to taint kind of the reputation itself of the judicial system and those attorneys who advocate for plaintiffs in the judicial system, and it's called tort reform. But a lot of the notions that, you know, you get a lawyer and you can sue for anything and get a lot of money are just not true. And we can both speak from our experience that, you know, it ultimately will be decided by jurors from New Hampshire or Vermont sitting there saying, does he or she have a case or not? And if they don't, it's out the door. So when an attorney takes a case, they have to make a judgment up front. Is this case worth proceeding? Is the case worth going through all the days and nights and possibly years of preparing the case for trial? So it's, I think ultimately it's a fair system, and lawyers are a key part of showing what the truth is. And again, with a lawyer on both sides, in theory, the truth will come out to the jurors.
Yeah, and I also think a part of it, having talked to a lot of jurors over the course of the last 20 years, and talked to people in general about how they feel about the system, that people's perspectives on it can change rapidly if something happens to them. In other words, looking at somebody else's conduct, they may think, well, gee, I wouldn't have sued in that situation. I would have walked away. But what I found with people is that if it's them or their own loved one or their family's, their family's economic well-being that's jeopardized because somebody hurt them, then they tend not to walk away. So I think that people's perspective on the system can certainly change a lot depending on what position they're in when they're looking at it.
Yep. I think, Robin, people go into the law for different reasons and become attorneys for different reasons. But I must say I very much enjoy what I do, first of all, because it's certainly a broader practice than you have. But also I very much enjoy representing the underdog and using the legal system to what amounts to serving justice, and serving justice for injured parties and parties in all different areas of legal practice. And I assume that's one of the reasons you enjoy what you do.
Well, I do. And we're also, our firm does an awful lot of civil rights law. So we currently are representing someone with a claim against the Hartford Police Department, for instance. We have 2 or 3 of these cases right now, and that's also a passion of ours, guaranteeing that somebody's civil rights aren't infringed by people in government or the people working for government.
Mm-hmm. An example I have of what was an enjoyable case for me was when this elderly gentleman was being harassed because he wasn't paying his credit card, which he unfortunately couldn't afford. Well, the harassment amounted to calls in the middle of the night, calls on Sunday morning, constantly abusing him on the phone and threatening things legally that they really couldn't do. So I told him to keep track of the times, the dates, and the conversations. And this was a national credit card company that has since changed their name, and I won't divulge it, and they changed it because there have been so many claims and suits brought against them. But we took them on, and it took a couple of years, but we prevailed. And that's the kind of, we didn't get rich on that, but it was the kind of case that I very much enjoyed because I felt that we did him justice. Yeah. So, Robin, maybe you could talk just a little bit about how, if someone is injured or has questions, how they go about finding a lawyer. And let me say first, what I always recommend is you don't have to come and see me, but the best way to find a competent lawyer is to know somebody who has used and experienced, a high-quality lawyer for what they were hired for.
Yeah, and I also think that what people don't do enough is, if you have a serious personal injury case and you're talking to a lawyer, whether it's on the telephone or in person, you should have your own questions to ask. How many cases has he tried to verdict? What kind of results has he gotten? What kind of settlements has he achieved in cases like yours? One of the things that I do want to say is that we do a lot of litigation in my firm, but we also settle a lot of personal injury cases without even filing suit. The important thing about trying cases doesn't mean that your case is going to try. Most of the people who hire me hope that they don't have to try their case. But I think what makes us so effective is that every insurance company in Vermont and New Hampshire and every defense attorney knows that we will try the case if we have to. That's the leverage. So please don't think that if you call us, that means that you're necessarily getting on board for a trial. You probably aren't. But the cases settle because there's no doubt in anybody's mind that you'll get the trial you're entitled to if you're treated unfairly.
And I think insurance companies, I don't know if I bet they do track individual lawyers, but whether they do or they don't, they know who tries cases and who doesn't try cases. And if in fact they know that no matter what happens, you're not willing to go to court, the value of your case at that point has gone down significantly for settlement purposes. And again, our firm, we will either try a case or partner with Van Dorn and Curtis in some cases to try the case, and that counts for a lot. Let me comment too on ads. We certainly have some advertising ourselves, but the best way to get a lawyer is to not pick the biggest ad in the book, or call a Massachusetts attorney who's advertising on TV during soaps. But there is as Robin said, I think you have to delve a little deeper into, okay, well, you had a nice, picture ad in the phone book, but do you do a lot of personal injury cases? What has your experience been? And, how are you thought of in your community?
Yeah, and actually the one thing that I want to follow up on, Tom, that you just said is that I have seen time and again, I have been referred a lot of cases over the years by attorneys who were unable to settle the cases and for whatever reason didn't want to try them. And I've seen many, many times that I've come into the case for only a short time. But now the insurance company and the defense attorney knows that there's going to be a trial. They know, I believe, that we'll do a competent job at the trial, and that makes the case an awful lot more settleable. So I think that's a big part of it too. Most cases settle. I say this, I'm on the verge now of going into a trial locally, a sex abuse trial that may not settle. This one may go to trial. But that's a big part of it too. The only way that you don't get rusty in my business is if you get up in front of a jury now and then and do the job that you're trained for. And so I actually really like both parts.
Mm-hmm. If, again, I don't want this to sound like a commercial, but if you have questions about your legal rights, you should contact an attorney and maybe get a second or third opinion and go through the process of scrutinizing who these lawyers are, as you would a doctor or a hospital. And hopefully the attorneys that you pick will do you justice.
Okay. And thank you very much for welcoming us back, folks, into your homes. The lawyers are back. I guess that's evident. And we hope to keep delivering our scintillating message every month or so.
And I did have, just so you know, a really great guy walks into a bar joke, but Robin thought, at least for the first presentation here, it might be a little edgy, so we passed on that, but maybe next time. And thank you very much for watching us, and feel free to contact us.